everybody, thank you for joining me on today's edition of Glen's Retro Show. Today we are going to talk once again about these little tiny arcades. These things are really neat. You can get Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaxian, and Space Invaders. And what's really neat about them is that actually all four games are actually on each one of them. I've already done a video on how to modify this with cutting a hole in the back and putting a little dip switch on there so you can select the individual games, turn the machine on, you'll get that particular game. But a friend of mine over at Obtanium Gaming, Charles Tweedy, came up with an ingenious idea. It's actually a little bit easier to do. You don't have to do any cutting on the back of the console, and you can simply use the joystick itself to select the game. Not only that, once you have it turned on, you don't need to turn it off to select the other games. And it still retains high score, kind of. I'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. But again, this will be a quick little video showing you how to modify this little guy without having to cut it, without having to buy a rotary dial, without having to buy a dip switch, or anything. Just 4 wires, a soldering iron, a little bit of your time, and you can turn this into any one of the 4 games at will. So let's take a quick look at this. And again, thanks to Charles Tweedy at Obtanium Gaming for coming up with this solution. It was ingenious. Let's go. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to again thank Charles of Obtanium Gaming for coming up with this really neat joystick solution to select what game you're going to play on these tiny arcades. You don't have to purchase any dip switches, you don't have to purchase anything else except maybe a soldering iron, some flux, and 4 little wires to connect the joystick to the PCB mainboard. So let's get started. So here we're going to take a Pac-Man tiny arcade. Had one available, so we're just going to take it out of the box, open up the back, which is really just 2 screws right here. Put your thumb here and here to separate the 2 sides. There's a little lock joint in here, and it flips right out. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out 2 screws up here. You can see right here. Put your thumb nail in these 2 areas here to get these tabs out, and this will simply slide right out once that's done. Move it over to the side. Now, when we did the dip switch solution or the rotary knob, you could technically just move these wires out of the way. That's what I did. Solder into this area right here and not take anything else out. But we need to really get down now to this particular area here, and there's too much in the way. So we're going to have to take out this screw, these screws right here, all have to come out, all of them, so you can take out this entire device. So you can see all the screws have been removed. Make sure you don't lose them, they are small. This is the light for your marquee at top. Once you take the screw out, there's 2 little tabs, it'll pull right forward. Once you take out all these screws, this guy will fold out, and then be careful taking out your screen and these wires. You don't put too much pressure on anything here, they'll break. Just take your time, it will come out. You can see here's the front of the unit. Once you take out the screws on the back, the front bezel here will come right off, and the screen will pull right out. And then the controller area slides. Don't try and pull it up, don't try and push it out any other way. It simply slides back. There's a little groove right in here that'll let you to, you can see it a little bit right here. There's a PCB, and it's in a groove right here. It'll just slide right out, no problem. Now once everything's out, we'll be able to start to work on the board and the joystick controller, which we need to do to make this modification. So you can see right here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is the back side where there's a glue, epoxy glue glob over the main chip. And this is the ribbon cable to your display. Now be very careful with your soldering iron. You get anywhere near this, potentially you're going to ruin it. It'll just melt the cable right here. But we want these guys right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 wires we're going to use for our joystick. Up, down, left, and right to pick what game we're going to use. So you see I have some helping hands here because they do come in very handy. And I have a small, once again, tiny IDE cable. Just cut 4 wires off of it, a few inches in length. But I did it backside and wrapped it around just because it was easy to get the soldering pads. I know Charles, I think, went to the other side and put it right on directly. But I wanted to do it this way. And this is imperative. Get yourself a little flux pen. I got this for like $1 off eBay from China. It's got a little pen tip on it. It's a no clean flux. You're going to dab some on there just to make sure that all the joints adhere and solder goes where it's supposed to. I'm telling you, if you have a lot of problems soldering, you're probably not using a flux or a good flux. So you can see right here, that's it. I had to go back on this one. I'm starting to go a little blind, so I didn't see that at first, but I went back and got it again. So you just dab some flux down on these 4 wires right here, and took my little 4 wires. I took from an ID cable and simply touched them, and they went right in. Obviously, I had to fix this one right here, and this one was fixed as well. These 2 went fine. And once that's done, you have to really make sure there's no bridging. No one here is touching between the pads. Again, flux really comes in handy with this. It really makes a solder pull to the joint and pull on the copper. And now we're on the opposite side. Again, some people simply went from these pads right here, the A, B, C, D, and went right under here. But I didn't want to take a chance of risking nailing this wire and melting it down. Probably would have been fine, but I wanted to wrap it around because that's kind of what I do. So you can see here's your A, B, C, D game. And this is our little jumper pad. It's a 0 ohm resistor, which means it's basically just a copper wire going across. We need to take our soldering iron on this first to get this off. And we now no longer need a ground wire anywhere here or over here. The joystick is already pre-ground. So we're just going to take 4 wires and attach 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all we have to do. Touch these guys on here and we'll be all set to go. So you can see my wires brought around, and we simply put it down, make sure there's no jumper or bridges on these 4 wires. And I did use some hot glue just to make sure it didn't move and get knocked out in any way, shape, or form. It's inside. It's probably never going to move, but I just played it safe and put some hot glue down as well. Here it is from another angle, just making sure there's no bridges over to here. If any one of these wires bridge across, if only one's bridging, that game's going to load all the time. And if multiple are bridged, no game is going to load. So make sure, again, check from all different angles, make sure nothing is bridged, and everything came out pretty good right here. And again, some hot glue down here just to keep it from moving. Another angle, everything looks good. No one's bridged, no one's touching the other pads. So we are good. So the next thing I did was I had the unit off, and I moved the joystick to one direction, turned it on, and you can see now I got Galaxian on the Pac-Man board. Turned it off, went to another pad on the joystick, Space Invaders. Turned it off again, moved the joystick, we got regular Pac-Man. Moved the joystick again, and we got Miss Pac-Man. So right now during this test process, I switched it off every time. But it turns out you can actually leave it on and wait for it to go to standby mode with the power saving mode. When the screen goes off, if you press the joystick in the direction you want it to be, if it's the same game, move it to the same direction. If you want a different game, obviously pick a different direction. But once you move the joystick to a position, press the coin button. When you do that, it'll load the ROM and you'll be good to go. You don't have to turn it on and off at all. The one weird thing is, when you set a high score in one game, it'll transpose the high score to any game. So if you got, let's say, 1,000 points in Space Invaders, let it go into standby mode, and moved it to, say, now Miss Pac-Man, and hit the button, it'll have 1,000 score for Miss Pac-Man. So no going to Twin Galaxies and cheating, fellas. So once it's all done and tested, it's simply put everything back the way it was. Put everything in carefully, and we'll do a little video here showing you some of the gameplay and how this actually works. So let's go take a look at that now. Hi everybody. I just completed the Charles Tweedy modification to my Tiny Arcade Pac-Man here. And with that modification that Charles had done, you can see there's nothing visible on the unit itself. There's no dip switches or anything. He actually showed us how to wire the joystick itself to the A, B, C, D pins to pick your game. Now, this was already done. The reason I'm doing this little video here is I thought I read a post on my forum, Tiny Arcades, that someone said it didn't retain the high score when it goes to sleep, you lose your game and stuff like that. I'm not seeing that. I'm going to show you right now. We're going to turn this on. I'm going to pick a game. It's not going to be easy here. I'm going to move the joystick over to the left, which would be Pac-Man. If I can turn this on here, hold on. So you can see I'm getting Pac-Man. So I'm going to play one game. So I put the coin in here, put a game in. And I'll eat some dots, just so I get a high score. It's okay if I die. Okay, I died. I'm going to do the same thing again. I got a score of, looks like 180. We'll get a little more. Let's go back this way. come down and die. So my high score is 430. Now I'm just going to let the machine be, and I'm going to let it time out. So it'll take a few seconds. It's going to start its demo. There it goes. So you can see my score is 430. We're running a demo mode right now, so it should time out any moment and go black. Okay, so the machine turned off, the lights off, the machine went to sleep. Now, technically, I can move the joystick in any direction and press the coin button, and it would start that game without having me go to the back of the unit and hit the on-off button. So the machine is still on. I'm going to put it back to the way it was with Pac-Man, which is over to the left, and press it all the way to the left, and hit the coin button. And you can see, here's the game, and I'm going to start a new one now. My high score of 430 is still there. So I'm going to let this game finish. I'm going to die again. But you can see my high score is there, 430. All I had to do was put the joystick back in the selected area, which was Pac-Man, over here, and hit the coin button. And it restarted the ROM with the high score intact. So I'm going to die again. If they come and kill me. Come on, guys. Okay. Now this time I'm going to let it time out. Instead of going to the left, I'm going to try going to another direction. Maybe I'll go over to the right, which is Miss Pac-Man. And when I do that, I'll hit the button. I'll lose the high score, but I'll be able to pick a new game without having to go to the back and hit the power button on and off. So we'll let the demo go. Let's wait for the demo to time out. Okay, so it's blacked out. I'm not touching the power button. I'm simply going to move the joystick now to the right. I got to turn it a little bit. Over to the right and hit the button. And now you can see I'm starting Miss Pac-Man without having hit the reset button in the back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this time out. I'm just going to go back because I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to go back to Pac-Man and see if my high score got retained or if my high score got erased. Sorry, this little camera's not getting into focus here. Sorry about that. See if it gets back into focus here. There we go. So let the demo go. Again, this is a Charles Tweedy from Obtanium Gaming. This is his modification. Does not require any dip switches or rotary switches. You simply wire the A, B, C, and D to the 4 directions on the joystick. There's no outside modification, so it saves a lot of time. Okay, we're blanked out. So now I'm going to try going to the original Pac-Man, which is over to the left. I'm going to do this for a second. Okay, my Pac-Man is back. Let's see if we get back in focus. Come on, camera. There we go. I'm going to start a game. And you can see my high score is retained. So high score of 430 is still there. It's focused. So this is actually the mod to do. It did retain my high score from Pac-Man when I left the game and went to Miss Pac-Man. So, guys, I think we also thank Charles Tweedy for this excellent mod. We were able to get all the games going with no external purchases, just a little soldering and a little piece of wire. We can pick the games now without having to turn the machine on and off when it goes into sleep mode, and it does retain our high score. Now, since I'm recording this long anyway, I'm going to let it time out again. I'm going to go to Miss Pac-Man, get a little score going, and let's see if, when we get a score in Miss Pac-Man, if the Pac-Man score stays. Here we go. Just get a little score going. And it did keep my score. So it looks like we can keep our high scores. Further investigation, it does retain the high score, but it only retains 1. So if you get a score of 430 in Pac-Man, which I did, and you go to Miss Pac-Man, the high score is 430. You go to Space Invaders, the high score is 430. And you go to Galaxian, the high score is 430. So the high score is actually not going to be accurate anymore, unless you only play the one game until you do a power off. But you can go back to the game by simply moving the joystick back in the direction and pressing the coin button, or when it's in suspend sleep mode, pick a new joystick direction to pick a different game and hit the coin button, and it will start that game with the high score. So no Twin Galaxies high scores for these little cheaters, but still pretty neat. And I really thank Charles for that modification. I will say it's more involved as far as you got to take everything out of the unit really to get the solder done, but it looks great obviously on the outside when it's all done. So again, is it a worthy mod? I definitely think so. I think the dip switch one is good as well. At least with the dip switch one, you will definitely take a high score per game. And this one, that's the only drawback. Once the power switch is on, you don't have to keep hitting the power switch on and off to pick a different game. When it goes in sleep mode, just move the joystick in the desired direction for the desired game, hit the coin button, and you'll start that game. So Charles, great job, buddy. Thanks for watching, guys. Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.